AITA for cutting my parents off after overhearing what they really think of me. My name is Chloe. I was 28 years old at that time and worked in finance at a pretty decent firm in Los Angeles. It all started one Tuesday morning when my boss called me into his office. Mr. Davis has been my supervisor for 3 years, and honestly, he has always been fair with me. I knocked on the door and entered. He was behind his large wooden desk with several papers spread out. "Chloe, sit down," he told me, pointing to the chair on the other side. "I need to talk to you about something important." I sat down and tried to read his face. He looked serious but not angry. "I've been watching your work for a while," he started. "Your financial analysis reports are always excellent. And how you handled the Sterling account last month was top-notch. You saved us good money and several headaches." I felt a little jump of excitement. This was a raise talk. "Thank you," I said. "I really appreciate it." "That is exactly why I want to offer you something big," he continued. "We're expanding the Austin office and I want you to transfer there as lead financial analyst." My heart raced. It was a promotion. Better salary, more responsibility. "Over there you're going to help build the department from scratch." I had been in the same position for 2 years, watching how others moved up while I stayed put. I felt that finally a door was opening for me. "That sounds incredible," I blurted out. "What kind of salary are we talking about?" "A raise of around $20,000 a year," he replied, as if he already had it calculated. "And the company covers the move. Plus, there's real room to grow. If you do things right, in 2 years you could be in a coordination or even a management position." I was trying to process it. $20,000 more a year. That wasn't just anything. That was life-changing, paying off debts, finally saving, breathing. And then reality hit me. Austin was far, a long flight or a 20-hour drive from Los Angeles. 20 hours away from my family. How much time do I have to decide? I asked. "I want your answer by Friday," he said. "That's 4 days. I know your family situation is complicated. I understand that it's not just your decision, but think about it calmly and think about what's best for you in the long run." I thanked him and left with my head in a knot. My family situation. He knew it was complicated. More than once, I'd had to say no to work trips or staying late due to issues at home. And the thing is, my family situation really was complicated. I am the oldest of 3. My parents are good people in many ways, don't get me wrong, but they never finished college. My dad, Robert, works in construction when his back allows it. My mom, Patricia, worked in retail until her arthritis got worse about 3 years ago. Then there's my brother Kevin, who was 25, and my sister Jessica, 23. Neither of them went to college. Kevin works hourly in a warehouse and Jessica jumps from job to job, almost always in retail or food service, whatever she can find. Both live on their own, but they barely make ends meet. I was the lucky one, I suppose. I was always good with numbers and reading. My parents pushed me a lot to study. When I was able to get into a good state school on a scholarship to study finance, it was a miracle, because in my house there was no way to pay for it and my parents never let me forget it. "We raised you right," my mom would say. "That's why you turned out like this. That scholarship was because we made you do your homework, because we bought you books whenever we could." And in part they were right. They encouraged me, bought me notebooks and books when they could, helped me however they could. So, when I graduated and got a job, I had this idea stuck in my head. I owed them. It started small. "Honey, I need a couple $100 for the car repair. Chloe, help me with $300 for some co-pays and prescriptions. Chloe, I'm short $400 for the security deposit. Lend it to me and I'll see how I pay you back later. I need money for work clothes, otherwise they won't hire me." It seemed normal to help if I could. But then my mom's arthritis got worse and she couldn't handle full-time work anymore. At home, the mortgage payment started to get tight. With my dad's income, it wasn't enough. So I started helping with that too. "Just until your mom gets better," they said. Except my mom never got better, and without realizing it, I became my family's bank. I paid the monthly mortgage, helped with physical therapy, doctor visits, prescriptions, covered Kevin's rent when they cut his hours, and got Jessica out of trouble every time she changed jobs or her car broke down. I earned well, but not enough to maintain 4 adults. Even so, after supporting everyone, I had almost nothing left. I was still living in a tiny one-bedroom apartment, in a less expensive part of town, driving a car that was begging for a rest, buying store-brand groceries, watching every dollar. I hadn't gone on a real vacation in 3 years. I couldn't even save for a down payment on my own place, but they were my family and they always thanked me. "You're an angel," my mom would tell me. "We don't know what we would do without you." And it felt good. It felt good to be needed, to be the one who fixes things, the one who saves the day. That Saturday, I went to my parents' house for our family dinner. They lived in a suburb of LA, in a house they had gotten with a lot of effort. My mom had made a pot roast, mashed potatoes, and green beans. The usual group was there laughing, chatting as if everything were normal. When we finished, I took a deep breath. "I have something to tell you," I let out. Everyone turned. This week they offered me a promotion, but it's in Austin. I would have to move. The silence was immediate. I saw the color drain from my mom's face. "You can't go, Chloe," she said, and her voice broke instantly. "You can't abandon your family like that." "I'm not abandoning anyone," I replied. "It's a job opportunity." But my mom was already crying, really crying, with tears running down her face. "If you go, we're going to have problems," she said between sobs. "You know we depend on you. The house, my physical therapy, your dad's back. And moving costs. You're going to have new expenses. You won't be able to help us like before." My dad nodded seriously. "Your mom is right," he concluded. "We need you here. Family comes first." Kevin and Jessica looked at me with worried faces. "And my rent?" Kevin blurted out. "I can't handle that without your help." Jessica jumped in quickly. "And I just started this job. If a problem comes up, what do I do if you aren't here?" I saw their faces. I heard the panic in their voices. I saw my mom crying. A horrible weight fell on me. How was I going to leave if they needed me? "It's okay," I said finally, swallowing everything. "It's okay. I won't take the position. I'll stay." My mom wiped her tears and smiled in the same movement, as if the world aligned for her. "Oh, thank God," she said. "I knew you were going to choose well. You're a good daughter." Everyone relaxed. The conversation went elsewhere, but I was left with a hole in my chest, feeling that I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. On Monday, I went to Mr. Davis's office and told him I couldn't accept the transfer. He looked disappointed but not surprised. "I understand," he said. "Family obligations can tangle up your life. But Chloe, think about something. Make sure that the relationship with your family is as balanced and healthy as you think it is." I didn't understand what he was referring to, but I thanked him. I had already decided. I stayed to take care of my family like always. 3 weeks passed and I went back to the same automatic mode. Work all day, come back tired, and stretch my salary to cover their expenses and mine. I worked overtime when I could so it would be enough for my parents' mortgage, my mom's therapies, and any emergency that appeared, and there were always emergencies. My friend Olivia, who I went to college with, texted me to go on a long weekend to Miami. She had found a good deal and told me that sharing a room it would come out to about $1,000 total between the flight and hotel. "Chloe, come on," she insisted. "You haven't given yourself a break in years. You deserve it." I thought about it. With that money, I could buy Kevin the new phone he had been hinting at for months. His cell phone was in bad shape, cracked screen, slow, and he spent his time complaining. So I told Olivia, "No, maybe next time. I have family matters." The truth is that I felt useful helping them. When my mom called me to thank me for paying for therapy sessions, or when Kevin hugged me and told me I was the best sister, I felt it was worth it. That was what I repeated to myself. Until one Tuesday afternoon, while at my desk reviewing some budgets, my cell phone rang. "Mom," I answered. "Hi, Mom, what happened?" "Hi, sweetie," she said. And as soon as I heard her tone, I knew a request was coming. "Sorry to bother you at work, but we have a situation." "What situation?" "Water started leaking from the kitchen sink yesterday. Your dad wanted to fix it and made it worse. It already got the cabinet underneath damp, and we need a plumber to come." I massaged my forehead. "And how much is it going to cost?" "The guy who came to look says it's about $500 to fix it right. He says a part needs changing, the faucet needs to be adjusted, and he has to check the cabinet so the wood doesn't warp. $500. That week I had already paid the mortgage for my parents' house and my own rent. Plus I had covered a repair for Jessica's car. My bank account was already thin. I took a deep breath. It's okay, I said. I'll do it right now. I opened my banking app, and with a tight throat I made the transfer at that moment. Chloe, you're our salvation, my mom let out. Like always. I don't know what we would do without you. You are the only thing we have. Your dad and I didn't sleep thinking about this, but I knew you were going to resolve it. You always do. Her words warmed my chest as if she were hugging me. We said goodbye and I went to hang up, but I noticed the call was still connected. My mom hadn't hung up on her end. I was about to cut it, but then I heard voices in the background. I stayed motionless with the cell phone glued to my ear and heard my mom again, but she wasn't talking to me anymore. She was talking to someone in the house. Well, that was easy, she said with a totally different voice, cold, annoyed. The martyr always falls for it. My body froze. My dad let out a little laugh. $500 for a sink that I can fix with a $30 part. And then, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. But why bother when our personal ATM is happy to pay? I felt my ears buzzing. I squeezed the cell phone tighter. It's really sad, my mom continued. Always desperate to feel needed. It's just that that's what family is for, she said, imitating my voice with a high-pitched tone. Ugh, how annoying. Sometimes I can't stand her, but well, at least she serves a purpose. Kevin's voice entered as if he were right there. I wish she'd stop acting like she's broke. I've been asking about the phone for weeks and nothing. Jessica laughed. Well, be more direct. I just tell her my car broke down or that I need money for work and boom. It works every time. They burst out laughing as if I were a joke. My dad said, remember when she almost ditched us for Austin? Oof, I was already picturing myself in trouble, added Kevin. Thanks to me she didn't go, said my mom proudly. As soon as she mentioned moving, I knew what to do. Cry a little, lay on the guilt that she's abandoning the family, and done. She stayed here where she belongs. My dad mocked, yeah. The performance worked out well for you, huh? And my mom finished off as if she were talking about an object. She thinks we really love her, thinks we appreciate her, but really she isn't anything special. She's a very convenient source of money. If someday she stopped paying, we'd just drop her. My heart started pounding in my chest. My dad added as if it were a joke. The funniest thing is that she really thinks we love her. There was a short silence and then the phrase that broke something inside me. I didn't even want her, said my dad. She was an accident. She caught us very young and ruined everything for us. If she hadn't been born, who knows? Maybe we would have even gone to college. I felt sick. I felt the room spinning, even though I was sitting in my office. Jessica said, amused. The best part is the guilt she carries. As if she owes us something just for existing. Super easy to manipulate her. She's probably eating ramen noodles, but for us she always finds a way. Kevin laughed. Next time I'm going to tell her that if she can't buy me the phone, she needs to tighten her belt more. Let's see if that works. And again that laugh, that ugly, unrestrained laugh without a bit of shame. I hung up with trembling hands. I stayed looking at my computer screen, but I didn't see anything anymore. My world had just shattered in 5 minutes. I don't know how long I sat there with my eyes open. I finished the day on autopilot, as if I were far away from myself. When I left, I drove to my apartment in silence with a churning stomach. I arrived, threw myself on the couch and stared at the ceiling. My cell phone vibrated with messages. I ignored them for a while until finally I picked it up. It was my mom. Thank you, sweetie, for the sink money. You helped us out so fast. You're an angel. I love you. I read the message 3 times. The same sweetness as always, the same act. Now I knew what they really thought. I wasn't their daughter or their sister. I was their bank. That night I spent replaying their conversation over and over. And the worst part was accepting how blind I had been. All the times I believed I was being a good daughter, a good sister, that I was sacrificing myself for love, it was a lie. They didn't love me, they used me. And then Mr. Davis's phrase hit me. Make sure the relationship is balanced and healthy. He saw it before I did. They weren't scared of losing me when I told them about Austin. They were scared of losing the money. The next day I arrived at work like a ghost, but something in me had already changed, as if a blindfold had been removed. Around 10 in the morning, I went to Mr. Davis's office and knocked on the door frame. "Come in," he said, looking up. "How are you, Chloe?" I swallowed hard. "I've been thinking about what you told me." I started, and without realizing it, I told him everything. About my family, what I paid, what I heard on the call. He leaned back in his chair and looked at me calmly. "And you were right," I said with a firmer voice than I expected. "It isn't healthy. It isn't balanced. Is the position in Austin still available?" A slow smile appeared on his face. "It is," he said. "It was a new spot and we hadn't closed the hiring process yet. Are you ready?" "Yes," I replied as quickly as I could. He nodded, as if he understood perfectly. "Good for you. You're going to do very well. When can you start?" "I need a few weeks to sort things out here. Terminate my apartment lease, pack the basics. Take the time. I'll start the paperwork today." I left his office with a lightness I hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long time, I was making a decision for myself. That same day I called my landlord, Mr. Chun. He was an older man, serious, but had always been fair with me. "Good afternoon, Mr. Chun. It's Chloe from apartment 4B. I wanted to talk about my lease." "Go ahead." "They're transferring me to another city for work. I need to leave soon. I know normally it's 30 days notice, but is there a way to arrange it? I really need to." He was silent for a few seconds. "Look," he said finally. "You've been a good tenant. You've never been late on rent. You haven't caused me any problems. When would you need to leave?" "In 2 weeks. "It can be done," he sighed, as if making a decision. "Okay, we'll end the contract next Friday without penalty, but leave everything in good condition. And for my part, I don't get involved in family matters." Tears almost came out from the relief. "Thank you, really. You don't know how much that means." The following week went by between boxes and pending tasks. I sold almost all my furniture on Facebook Marketplace and at a consignment shop. I kept the essentials. I packed the important stuff. I started looking for apartments in Austin online. I found a decent one-bedroom and viewed it with the help of a real estate agent via video call. I got everything squared away. The hardest part was not saying anything to my family. Every day I expected someone to call me to ask for money or to invent an emergency, but that week they were busier with their own things and for once they didn't look for me. I scheduled the move for Thursday and asked for Friday off to close out the last details. When I handed the keys to Mr. Chun, I felt like I was shedding an old skin. Before leaving I told him, "Can I ask you a favor?" "What is it?" "If someone comes asking for me, especially my family, would you do me the favor of not telling them where I went? Just tell them I've already moved." He looked at me with a furrowed brow, worried. "Everything okay?" "It's going to be okay," I said. "I just need to cut ties with people who hurt me." Mr. Chun nodded slowly. "Fine by me. You aren't here anymore and I don't give out information." As a thank you, I brought him a small gift, some good quality coffee and some chocolates. I shook his hand. "Take care," he told me. On Saturday morning I hit the road for the drive to Austin. Nearly 20 hours on the road with my life packed in the trunk and on the seats, and every mile felt like freedom. I had already agreed to start on Monday, and spent the weekend settling into my new apartment. On Monday I arrived at the new office with nerves, but also with excitement. The team welcomed me well. The work was challenging, but in that way that makes you feel alive. I had real responsibilities. People listened to my ideas. For the first time I felt I was using my full potential. A few days passed and when the date for the mortgage payment approached, my cell phone started ringing like crazy. "Mom." I stared at the name for a good while and let it go to voicemail. She dialed again an hour later and again at night. I didn't answer. The next day a message arrived. "I haven't heard from you, sweetie. I was thinking of coming to see you this weekend. We haven't seen you in a while." I knew what it meant. They needed money for something and wanted to ask me in person. I deleted the message without replying. Over the next few days the calls and messages increased. First my mom, then my dad, then Kevin and Jessica, all looking for me, all wondering why their ATM wasn't answering. Then my mom sent the direct message, the usual one, that the mortgage payment was coming and to make the transfer. As always, I smiled. For the first time in years, I smiled at a message from my family because I knew I was never going to send them another dollar. The calls continued for another week. They sounded desperate by now. Kevin called me 6 times in a single day. Jessica left a voicemail saying she had to talk to me about something important. My dad wrote, "Are you okay? You're not answering." I ignored everything, every message, every call, and the weird thing is that it felt incredible. Then my mom sent a text in a panic. "I went to your apartment and it's empty. I spoke with the landlord and he told me you moved, but he wouldn't tell me where." I laughed alone in my living room when I read it. Mr. Chan had kept his word. After that, the messages got worse. Where was I? Why wasn't I responding? What was happening? They tried to call my previous job, but I had already notified Human Resources that due to privacy policies they couldn't give out my personal information. A week later, I decided it was time to close this chapter once and for all. I sat down at my computer and wrote an email to my mom. I wanted it in writing so they couldn't play dumb. "Mom, I heard the conversation you all had after I called you about the sink. I heard everything you, Dad, Kevin, and Jessica said about me. I know that to you I am nothing but a source of money. I know the crying at dinner was an act to manipulate me. I know you don't love me or value anything I have done. So congratulations. The person you believe is worth nothing is not going to support any of you anymore. Don't look for me. I am going to change my number and I am not going to send you money again. Chloe." I hit send before I could regret it. The response arrived the next day. A long email begging for forgiveness. My mom said they were remorseful, that they had misspoken, that they loved me, and she finished with what she clearly thought was the final blow, that after reading my email she had severe chest pains, that they called an ambulance and she spent the night in the ER. That she wanted to see me in person to ask for forgiveness and fix things. I read it all and shook my head. Even then, she was still trying to manipulate me with guilt. A dramatic emergency to force me to answer. I deleted the email without replying. That same week I changed my number. I blocked everyone on social media. I set up filters so any email from their addresses went straight to my spam folder. And for the first time since I was an adult I felt free. My new job was going very well. My boss there valued what I did and treated me like a professional. 2 months later they gave me a raise, something that in my previous job seemed impossible. And without having to support 4 people, suddenly I had enough. I had real money. I bought myself new clothes without feeling guilty. I traded in my car for a more reliable one. I started saving for a down payment on a house, and yes, in the end I took that trip with Olivia. We went for a long weekend to Miami and it was like remembering that I had a right to live too. 6 months passed without speaking to anyone in my family. I don't know how they managed to pay for their things, and if I'm honest, I don't care. Surely they found a way. Maybe my dad learned to fix the sink, maybe Kevin looked for a full-time job, maybe Jessica stopped jumping from one place to another and settled into something stable, or maybe for the first time in years it was their turn to struggle. Either way, it was no longer my problem. My friends from my life before, the ones who know the story, were a huge support. They don't bring me gossip about my family, and I appreciate it. The few times someone mentions seeing one of them around, they just say, "They looked fine," and change the subject. I started making plans for the first time. I started looking at houses, started thinking about my future, even thought about doing a master's degree later on, things I would never have been able to even imagine while paying for the lives of others. The best part was realizing something that changed my mindset. I used to believe my value was in being necessary, in fixing things, in saving people, but that wasn't love. That was enabling 4 adults to avoid taking responsibility for their own lives. Now I help in another way. I joined as a volunteer for a financial literacy program on weekends, teaching people to get organized, to budget. At work, I started mentoring younger women who are just starting their careers. I donate to causes that actually make a difference, but I no longer run myself into the ground for their comfort. Sometimes people ask me if I miss my family or if I feel guilty for cutting them off. And the answer is no. You can't miss someone who never really loved you, and you can't feel guilty for refusing to be a victim. I was already 29. I lived in a city I liked. I did work that challenged me, and I was saving for my dreams instead of financing the lack of ambition of others. I had friends who loved me for who I was, not for my money. Last month I went for a weekend to Key West just because I felt like it. I stayed at a nice hotel, ate delicious food, and bought myself a necklace I had wanted for a while. The whole thing cost about $1,000. More or less what used to go in a month toward helping my family. There I was sitting by the pool with a glass of sparkling water with lime, reading a book, and I thought about my life before. About the overtime, the sad apartment, the car that was falling apart. About how I almost let the opportunity of my life pass because 4 people had convinced me that I owed them my future. And I felt a relief so big that it almost hurt. I am grateful to have heard that call. If I hadn't heard their conversation, maybe I would still be trapped in that cycle, believing lies about family, obligation, and love, while my life slipped away paying bills that weren't mine. I grew up believing that love was measured in what you endure and what you give, even if it hurts you. I believed that being a good daughter was dimming my own light so others could shine. But I understood something that took me years and many tears. Helping isn't the same as carrying someone. Family can be a refuge, yes, but it can also become an unfair burden when no one takes responsibility, and you are left alone holding everything up. I learned that setting boundaries is not betrayal. It's taking care of yourself. And that saying, "I'm done," doesn't make you a bad person. Gives you back your life. Comment. After hearing Chloe's story, I want to share one thought. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is set a firm boundary for your own sake. It's not about cutting people off in anger. It's about choosing your peace and well-being. Your value isn't measured by how much you can give, especially when giving costs you everything. Taking responsibility for your own life and happiness is the first step toward real freedom. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, not one-sided sacrifice. Healing begins when you realize you deserve a life you've built, not just one you've paid for. I hope this story encourages you to look at your relationships with honesty and compassion. Remember, you are the main character in your own story. Never be afraid to write a new chapter for yourself. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.